Hello out there, and welcome to the GamecockScoop.com podcast, the official podcast of GamecockScoop.com. I'm Caleb, and I'm joined by Alan and Pauline, and we're going to give you our thoughts on South Carolina's 23-10 loss against Mizzou on Saturday. Before we get started, though, I did just want to share this real quick clip from the post game where Spencer Rattler and Austin Stogner are talking. So we'll start there.
I don't know. I mean, we just got to get better at everything. Credit to Missouri. They gave us tough looks all night long with their blitzes, their pressures, the way they, got after us, and it was tough to get the drop back pass game going. We really didn't. I don't feel like we had a good idea of knowing what to do. So I say that's what we need to get better at, is just preparing and knowing what to do.
Spencer, what was that front four, front seven doing that maybe surprised y'all, or was it kind of what?
All right. It was muted on my end, so I don't know where I cut it off. But basically, it was a little interesting to hear Rattler say we have to do everything better, and that they didn't feel prepared or whatever the exact quote was there for the defense. Obviously, I mean, we talked about this. Me and Alan talked about this going into the game. The last 2 weeks, they got away with these fast starts by making some big plays on defense and special teams. And this week they didn't get those. And the offense had to kind of stand on its own leg. And against a above average defense, they fell. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Just each of you want to give kind of some initial thoughts on this one. Alan, you can go first.
Yeah, what I pretty much wrote about, and part of the pun is chickens coming home to roost here, because you have more than half a season, 7 games worth of data that this offense isn't really explosive. This offense doesn't really push the ball down the field. They kind of need stuff from defense, special teams, Marshawn Lloyd, whatever else you need to make happen for this to work. And when you don't get those things, you scored 10 points against Missouri. So I think it's just kind of a lot of things that were problems all year that you kind of can't hide anymore after this game.
Yeah, I think the Lloyd point is a good one, right? So he was obviously hampered by injury throughout. And the way that this offense has been successful in the games that it has been successful has pretty much run through him. He looked pretty good, even considering the injury when he could. I mean, he averaged 4.3 a carry on 7 attempts, but it was obvious that he couldn't carry the load for the whole game. And
deep bruise, by the way. We should say that. Beamer said he has a deep bruise on his quad. He should be okay for Vanderbilt, according to Shane, but we'll hear from him again tomorrow.
Which, I don't know. I was thinking about this yesterday. It might not be the worst thing to have to prepare a game plan without him being the center of it, just as an exercise. And this is your last opportunity against the team. This is your last opportunity against a team that, at least you're favored against, to do that, because they just seemed like they had no idea what to do once he was not, once they weren't able to run the offense completely through him. Pauline was down on the field for this one, taking pictures for us, which will be posted on GamecockScoop.com probably later today or tomorrow. Any field level observations, Pauline?
I mean, definitely going into it when I first, checked in with Alan while he was in the press box, we both were saying that it was going to be an ugly game. Not saying that it was going to be either a blowout, but it definitely was going to be a fight for us. And it was clear that that was what happened on the field. But to your point, I think after I noted this in our halftime report, but I really appreciated originally how Spencer took control of a high pressure situation where if Lloyd is out for Vanderbilt, we should have an alternative game plan, because he was under pressure and nobody was open. So he just decided to run it and ended up working. So I think, so I think that was really cool. But then he decided, that worked, so let's do it the rest of the time. And obviously they're going to catch on to that, considering I literally saw it happen in front of my face. I think I don't even know how many times I could count. I don't even know, but it was a lot for me to at least take note of it.
Yeah. So this one obviously didn't start too well. It was kind of a weird first half. South Carolina had 4 possessions offensively in the first half, and 2 of them were 3-and-outs, and then the other was like a quick first down, and then 3 or maybe 2 first downs and then 3-and-out. So they had a total of 8 plays on this first 3 drives for like, I don't 20 something yards.
There was a 16-yarder to Stog, and I don't think they had another play that was more than like 5 yards.
Yeah, so you get off to this rough start, and at the same time, Missouri is just marching down the field. Should have been down 21-0. We're able to kind of slow down one of the drives for just a field goal. So yeah, you're down 17-0 going into your 4th drive, and then they do finally piece something together. A little 4-minute drive right before the half that gives you a little bit of a spark. But so they did sort of endure the initial wave and then have a little bit of a counterpunch, but then they couldn't.
I wanted to ask Pauline about that, specifically about the start. Because I don't care what Shane Beamer says about energy, about practice, about how they were on guard for a letdown. I could see it. It was flat in there in Willie B for the whole first half.
You know me. I typically am all over the energy part of it.
Was it flat on the field? Was more what I meant to get at.
Yeah, no, it definitely was not the same. I mean, I don't know what it was. It had to be something with the fact that we blew Texas A&M, or not blew them, but we surprised ourselves.
That was the word I texted Caleb. It just felt sleepy.
Definitely, because I think going into it, you have to kind of rope back in your expectations. And I honestly had a kind of a gut feeling that this wasn't going to be a very, energized crowd. The student sections were fun, but like they didn't stay the whole game. They were leaving and trickling out, and I never liked seeing that, but I was on the field till the end, and they were still like the players. They honestly, I think they were okay by the end of it when they were like hugging and saying like good game to Mizzou. I think they were still a positive like vibe, but I definitely think, to Spencer's point in the press conference, there's things that they realize that they need to do better on. So that's something they probably were reflecting on.
Yeah, so it was really a tale of 2 halves for the defense, and then pretty much a struggle throughout for the offense. The defense gave up 254 total yards in the first half, which was pretty incredible, because there was a stat that popped up on the broadcast that I was watching that I think they were averaging 300 yards per game against them over this 4-game win streak, and they were already at 254 at halftime. But they really did sort of settle in the second half. I thought they made some nice adjustments at halftime, which is something that Clayton White's done several times since he's been here. So I thought that was pretty impressive, but it's you're not going to win very many games only scoring 10 points on offense. It's just no matter how good your defense is, that's a tough task to ask them. I mean, they even had a goal line stand out of a quick change situation when Spencer Rattler fumbled too. So all in all, I think you come away like, yeah, you can't give up 17 points on 3 straight drives to start the game on defense. That's definitely a slow start for them, but you still come away encouraged that they were able to settle in, figure things out. It seemed like the motion that Missouri was running on offense confused them a lot at first. Also, you had some safety injury issues in the first half that kind of settled in. But sorry, go ahead, Alan.
No, I was going to say, like, the defense gave them a chance to win this. I don't want to say win maybe, but the defense gave them a chance here. I mean, you mentioned the goal line stand. There was another stop, 2 more stops deep in territory that forced field goals. Like, the defense, I don't know, if your offense had a pulse in this game, that could have at least been an interesting 4th quarter.
I think off of that, just kind of, I thought it was interesting at the press conference this past week, they were talking about how they felt like, they're coming to find their identity and stuff like that. But when Alan was saying in the beginning, you can really see that the offense, it's still kind of the same vibe. They're still working on it. Just like in the beginning of the season, that was the whole thing. Like, we got to get it better. And, we've had these wins, but it's kind of covered up the fact that, like,
I guess my point on that, though, and I kind of sort of wrote this at the end of I think that was my last line of what I wrote. Like, we're 2/3 of the way through the season, the regular season. You can't still be working on. I know the coaches always say it's a work in progress. We got to get better every week, blah, blah, blah. But, like, I think it kind of is what it is at this point. We're 8 games in.
Well, and I would say that they do have an offensive identity when Marshawn Lloyd's healthy, right? And it's give the ball to Marshawn Lloyd and let him be a Superman, which he still made some pretty heroic plays the other night. There's one run in particular, I think it was like 4 or 5 yards for a first down where he broke like 4 tackles, did it all by himself. I called it on the game thread like the most impressive 4-yard run I've ever seen. But when you don't have, I mean, he obviously was beat up a good bit in this game. We'll see how he recovers over the course of this week, but it's possible that he's still going to be a little bit hampered by that deep bruise against Vanderbilt. What is your second option? I mean, I guess it's Antoine Wells, who had 7 receptions, 9 targets, but most of those were behind the line of scrimmage. Alan, I know you kind of just did a film breakdown and looked at the targets, because there's one egregious example on like 3rd and 18 where you throw a bubble screen that does not go very well, but really throughout the second half, and you understand to some degree why, because Spencer Rattler was getting pressured pretty much anytime he took a deep drop back. So they were having to rely on some of these quicker throws, but they did not push the ball down the field very much at all in this game.
Nope, I'm stepping on Perry McCarty's territory a little bit here, but I was up in the box, of course. I'm watching all these screens. I'm like, this seems like a lot of stuff behind the line of scrimmage. So yesterday, of course, when I'm watching the game back, I decided to just count how many times they throw behind the line of scrimmage. It was 12 in the second half, 13 total. There's a stretch in the second half of this game where where 8 out of 10 passes were caught behind the line of scrimmage. That's while you're trailing, while you're trying to come back. You're not trying to kill the clock here. You're trying to push your way back into a football game, and 8 out of 10 passes are going behind the line of scrimmage. It's just not going to work. I don't really know any other way to say it. Missouri's defense is good in space. They're good at tackling, and frankly, so is Vanderbilt's. That's kind of a strength of theirs. We'll talk about that later in the week. But I don't think, if you're talking about a plan B, I don't think throwing 12 screens is your plan B either, or it should be. So you're going to have to come up with something different.
Yeah, it was definitely painful to watch. And again, you do sort of understand some of it in theory, right? Like the running game was not working with the other 2 backs. The offensive line struggled. This was their worst performance since Georgia for sure, against a pretty good Missouri front, but I don't know if they're quite as good as they showed the other night. The offensive line really had no answer. So anyway, basically they turned the screen game into a stand-in for the run game, but it wasn't like it was consistently getting you what you wanted either. And speaking of downfield passes, I mean, you saw a couple go to Austin Stogner. One, he made a incredible
just gonna
catch.
say, I was gonna honestly shout him out.
Yeah,
because that man was beaten and bruised on these pictures that I took. Like by the end of the game, this man had scrapes all of the arm. He was really doing the most out there.
Yeah,
So
and I do
preach
think
to
that
him.
I do think that he's someone that continues to need to be involved. And they did talk post game that Rattler said he looked for that sort of seam past him again a couple more times in the game, and it wasn't there.
Definitely.
But my question, and a lot of people I saw on Twitter's question, is where's Jaheim Bell in this game? 0 targets for a guy that's kind of, I mean, he can run a 4.4, 4.5, and he's 6'5". You would think that you can find at least some ways.
Here's my Jaheim Bell. Look, this is a very complicated topic. We could probably spend an hour just talking about the Jaheim Bell thing, but my succinct thoughts on the Jaheim Bell situation would be there is, again, Beamer can say whatever he wants about having a lot of different targets. Satterfield can say whatever he wants on Wednesday. We got to spread the ball around, blah, blah, blah. He's not on the field. You can't give him a target if he's not on the field. Jaheim Bell, like you said, he's 6'5", he runs a 4.4. He's a difficult matchup. Even if you're not throwing him the ball, him being on the field forces the defense to change its calculus, to look at him, to shade a safety towards him, to whatever. You can't, whatever Jaheim Bell can possibly bring you, that's fine saying you got to throw the ball to other people. He's not even on the field. Again, you talk about excuses or things where you have a leg to stand on and the leg falls. If he's not even in the game, the leg kind of falls there.
I agree.
Yeah. And not to get too much into the Twitter space or the drama or whatever, but a couple of members of his family, including his mom, voiced their displeasure on Twitter after the game.
That would be one way to put it.
It's hard to blame them. Like if I'm if I'm the parent of someone that's all off season was supposed to be one of the best tight ends in the country, and every post game you have your offensive coordinator or your head coach or whatever saying like, yeah, he's one of the best athletes on the field, we got to get him the ball, and it just continues to not happen. I can imagine that that's a frustrating place to be now.
Well, the really
I don't know that it
is that Satterfield said Wednesday, if it were up to me, I'd get the ball to Jakeem 20 times. 0.
Yeah.
Goes back to your backup plans.
Right.
It shouldn't be even like a second thought at this point. Like, if you're really concerned about this point being able to have a plan B, he is a great option.
Yeah. So, I mean, and we talked a little bit about this in the week heading in, because like, yes, South Carolina scored 30 points against Texas A&M. That's a little bit misleading, because you have one that's return for a touchdown, and then you had another couple short fields. Same thing with Kentucky. You have a couple of turnovers. Yeah, exactly. So we saw what happens when you have to piece together several drives down the field, and we got 10 points. And that's not good enough. And I wrote in my rapid reaction on GamecocksScoop.com, like, it's not, I don't get paid enough to like call for someone's head or anything like that. But at this point, you're 21 games into the Beamer area, you're 21 games into offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield dialing up the plays. We had plenty of built-in excuses last year with the rotation of the 4 quarterbacks or whatever, but at this point, some of the trends that are emerging, I think, are safe to call trends, and it's going to be interesting how the rest of the season plays out, and whether or not some changes are beginning to be thought about.
Well, we're here. Let's have the conversation for a little bit. This is probably a better off-season topic, but whatever, we're here. What would have to happen over the last 4 games for you to actually think Marcus Satterfield should be back calling plays next season? You're pretty quiet over there, Caleb.
Yeah, I mean, a complete 180. I don't know. You average 400 yards a game and 30 points a game over the final stretch, and
but that'll happen.
Some upset wins,
Florida, Tennessee, and Clemson. But that'll happen.
I mean, you look at our message boards, right? You look at Twitter, you look at everywhere that anyone's talking Gamecock football right now, and there is definitely a giant target on that man's back right now. And fair or not, whatever, he's paid very handsomely to be in the position that he's in. So part of that is the criticism that comes along, and he's got a big challenge ahead of him to change the narrative around him. That's the most,
I mean, the players, honestly,
way to put it.
The players support him from what I've seen and
Publicly,
heard. Like, they honestly, I mean, yeah, but they also are like, it actually is kind of ridiculous how much he's getting bashed right now. Like, it almost reminds me of like a Muschamp. Like,
it does feel very Muschamp-esque. That's actually a good.
And that's like, is that another theme? Is that another trend for us? Just like,
I mean, I don't know if you call that a trend, because I think that's more just the way college football fans work, and maybe college football fans here.
Yeah. Trend for the Gamecocks.
The only thing I'll say for Satterfield is, and you kind of touched on this earlier, Caleb, is you've got Vanderbilt this week. That's the one team left on the schedule, and probably on the schedule total in conference play, if you even looking back, that's worse than you talent-wise, worse than you statistically. I mean, we're going to get into this later in the week. Vanderbilt's lost 25 straight SEC games. Like, you can't go to Nashville and look like this again this weekend. You just can't.
Knock on wood.
No, that's what I'm saying, though. Like, you have to find a way to – I mean, you're not going to put up you're not going to look like Tennessee's offense. You're not going to go put up 600 yards, I don't think. But if it looks like this again, and we're sitting here next Sunday or Monday or whenever we do a post game, and it looks like that –
I will not be on that then.
Yeah,
this is the one Satterfield needs. Like, this is I'm not going to call it a perfect get-right game, because I think Vanderbilt's defense can still pose some problems, but it's a much better get-right opportunity than Florida, Tennessee, or Clemson will be.
I mean, I think if they can get Florida, it will be another one under his belt that will like help him.
That would help. but you got to get Vanderbilt first.
Yeah.
Kind of my
Yeah, I
point.
mean, the thing is, even if you have a good showing against Vanderbilt and then finish out the season with 3 straights in March, and the offense doesn't look particularly good during it, I don't think it matters. Like, the cacophony is going to be nice and loud regardless. And yeah, it is kind of tragic. You brought up Will Muschamp. Like, this has been an ongoing problem since Spurrier stopped walking the sidelines, calling plays for South Carolina, right? Like, the offense struggles. Muschamp went through 4 different offensive coordinators. I mean, the tragic thing is, like, his best one was probably his last one, and
the defense was so bad by that point it didn't matter.
Yeah, right. It would have been nice if Beamer maybe was able to retain Mike Bobo, which isn't a sentence I ever thought I would want to say. But yeah, I mean,
at least for a starting point.
It's a frustrating place to be. So anyway, if you're a South Carolina fan and you are displeased with the offensive production, I get it, and it doesn't help that, like you said, the previous regime had the same problem. So it feels like, this if the Beamer era is going to go differently, this has to be something that he nips in the bud.
Again, he's still going to publicly defend him. He said last night on a teleconference that he's not making a change at play caller. That was a one-word answer, by the way. He just said nope. But also he was asked Saturday. It was the Gene Bell question, and it was also one just about changes in general. And I think I texted you this, Caleb. That's the first time I felt him kind of not outright defend Satterfield. He didn't criticize him, but he didn't outright defend him either. Which you're kind of reading between the lines at that point. Like, you could ask 5 different people what they thought of that quote and get 6 different answers, because that's just the way it works. But I didn't feel a strong defense vibe there, at least. I don't know. You watched it, Caleb. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, Beamer is definitely frustrated as well. And you can feel it in the
see it on the field.
Yeah.
I saw it on
and
the
that
field,
too.
man.
You got my background photo here, right? Like, this is This is from
I have
earlier.
A shot of him.
This is from earlier in the season. This isn't from last night, but there was a lot of cutting to him on the broadcast and his face looking very similar to that. Then, like you said, he's in the post-game presser and in the teleconference yesterday. He's not happy. And I'm sure he's very ready to get back out there next week and try to shift the narrative around a little bit, because, I mean, heading into this game, things sounded great, right? You're on a 4-game winning streak. You've beat 2 teams that had a winning streak over you. But we talked about this throughout the week, like, there was this underlying narrative of, like, yeah, but the offense still looks a little shoddy. And so then to lose a game with the offense looking shoddy, it's probably a little louder than it normally would.
And that was my point. That was we talked about this on the Thursday show, Caleb, but, like, you're not going to score a touchdown in the first 15 seconds every week, right? You're not going to get a special teams play every week, right? Like, I know Pete Lambo does a really good job on special teams, but it's not going to happen every single week. Like, eventually you're going to have to find another way to do this.
Thank you. I love that you just said that, because that's literally, like, they always are saying, like, we're constantly, like, changing the narrative, or, like, exactly. But if the fans expect that to be every single, like, game, that's the first 15 seconds every single game, that's not a practical outlook. That also affects the players. It affects the whole hounding on Satterfield, like, everything along those lines. Like, it's in the same with Spencer thinking that's good and just continuing to run it, and ends up not being good.
But we said this after Georgia State too, Caleb. Like, you're not going to block 2 punts and run them both back for touchdowns every week, right? Like,
no, I mean, here's the frustrating thing is, even though there might be some talent deficiencies on South Carolina's defense, Clayton White and whatever their philosophy been throughout the first 2 seasons has shown a propensity to make some explosive plays. Make some things happen.
That's one of the things.
Be opportunistic. And same with special teams.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I think he basically, one of the things I remember him talking about early on in the season is how even Georgia State, like they weren't on their toes enough. Like he said that he was calling plays like during practice, like a second, and you had to like switch it up, make sure that you were able to, change up when you needed to. And I think he's done a really good job of like varying the plays and making sure that like they have the options that they do, whether or not they have the deficiency, they can work good together. Which
No, this defense is good, and like you talk about a talent deficiency, but I don't know if you're just taking a star rating or whatever. Nicky Manwari was a 0-star safety. He didn't get recruited by anybody. He's incredible.
Literally.
He's probably the best player in that. I don't even want to say probably. Maybe Zach Pickens, but he's up there for the best player on this defense. Would be the point.
Yeah, it was funny on Carolina Calls on Thursday. Todd Ellis said something about like he's probably going to be a future all SEC safety, and Beamer is like maybe this year, like he's playing incredible right now. But that is true. Yeah, I wasn't meaning to say there's not talent. More my point was I feel like throughout the Beamer era so far we've seen games won on special teams, we've seen games won on defense. How many games can you honestly say the offense is the reason that they won the game? Maybe the bowl game against.
I was going to say North Carolina last year would be like the one probably. Do you count Vanderbilt last year when Zeb came in and led a drive at the end? Like that's technically the offense, but also they only scored 14 points before that.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that was a disgustingly ugly game too, but maybe.
I mean, you're really. I get your point though. The bowl game is probably the one and only. And maybe like Charlotte this year where Lloyd went insane, but that barely counts.
Yeah, I mean, you scored 50 points against SC State and Charlotte, but
no, you're talking about like SEC games. Power 5 opponents. It's probably just North Carolina last year's the one.
Yeah, so this is obviously something that we'll continue to analyze and talk about. And like I was really trying hard to come up with things to talk about other than the offense in Satterfield, but that is the story of this game in a lot of ways. I mean, we did talk about how the defense got off to a slow start, but you at least by the end of the game felt like you had seen them make some adjustments. I never felt.
I mean, they were really good about preventing that. I think in the third or fourth quarter, or end of the third, beginning of the fourth. Yeah, and I thought that was. I mean, there's moments like that where it's kind of like reassuring, but then it's like that false hope of like maybe we got it in the bag.
It's amazing to talk about false hope. I'll be honest, I never thought South Carolina was in that football game or thought they had a chance to come back. But it was a one-score game late in the third quarter. Like there was a hot second there where it was a 7-point game, but I never felt like they were going to do anything with that.
At least like I don't know. I just think that like summing it up, definitely the offense we saw their imperfections, but I think the defense like stepped up and like they were trying to, prevent runs, and like that last what I was about to say was the touchdown. They were able to turn it over and prevent. I don't know if they scored a.
Missouri missed the field goal in that one.
Yeah. Yep. That's the one. But like that just shows me like, all right, they're trying to step up. They're still in the game.
Too. Like Caleb said, that's sudden change after Raller's fumble. They just got on the field quick and made 3 plays and got lucky with the field goal, but still.
Oh, and by the time Missouri was like running out the clock near the end of the game or whatever, they're just exhausted. You could tell. I mean, they had spent the whole game on the field, and
they were getting beat up. I definitely, they were done.
But you can't blame them at that point. Like you said, kind of played their hearts out to keep them in it as long as they did, and finally they ran out of gas in the fourth quarter. But I mean, you expect that.
I mean, the only reason we're talking about this is a 2-score loss instead of a 3-score loss or a 4-score loss is the defense got 3 stops deep in its own territory in the second half and forced 3 field goal attempts, and Missouri missed one of them. This should have been a lot worse if we're being completely honest.
Pauline, just like a field level question that I had. So we talked about the energy at the beginning of the game, feeling like it was lacking a little bit. What did you notice as frustrations started to boil over or whatever? It didn't seem like, at least on offense, that there was ever anyone other than the one drive that Rattler kind of stepped up and scored on his own, that anyone like stepped up as a leader there. I don't know if you could notice them sort of talking amongst themselves or trying to hype each other up or anything.
I'd honestly have to go back into the pictures, but one of the things that I was actually going to touch on real quick was the fact that I think after one of the first like calls, I think it was someone got tackled
Oh,
wrong
is
or
this
whatever.
the Darius Rush pass interference?
Yes. And
Okay.
he was livid. The players were livid. Like, I feel like there was a lot of calls where it was kind of touchy, where they actually were like angry. They didn't like it. Like, I think as a group, like I was saying before, the identity whole thing of it, I think they were all pissed that like they felt like they were doing the most that they could, I think. So I don't think there was ever really one person. Besides, I would say like special teams was really good in defense, I would say. But
Yeah.
besides,
But that's its own kind of problem, though. If you don't have an offensive leader after 8 games when things are going
and he's
badly, like
supposed to be.
that's its
He's
own
supposed
issue,
to
isn't
be.
it?
Yeah, and
He's
that's
supposed to
kind of
be.
what
They
I
were
was
yelling to
wondering.
put Doty in. They were yelling to put
I
Doty
did.
in.
We
by
did
the
get some
third.
Luke Doty comments on the message board and on my
Yep.
Twitter. I got a few. Yeah.
No, the fans were so. I was shaking my head at them. They were being not nice at
I
all.
don't know what that
And I was-
accomplishes. We can hit on that too. I know you have another point, Caleb, but like I don't know what that really accomplishes at this stage.
Nothing.
Like, if
Nothing.
play calling still the same. If it's just Luke Doty throwing bubble screens instead of Spencer throwing bubble screens, I don't think that really changes anything.
Protects Spencer
No.
a little bit more from the hate, I guess.
Whatever. But
I guess it gives you a little bit of a different dynamic because I think Doty's a little bit of a better runner than Rattler, which, you know, maybe in a game like Saturday when he's running for his life the whole game, that could be useful. But also, you're not going to get some of those throws that Rattler can make. I mean, Doty is a talented
But he
passer,
wasn't
he's
even making
not
those,
that.
I feel like.
he missed. There was one really bad wide open miss. I think it was in the third quarter. I think it was. You can correct me if I'm wrong. It was Wells, I think, who was like wide open, or maybe it was Fan. And
No,
Rattler
it was
just failed
Wells.
it. It was Wells.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do remember that too.
You had a
Yeah,
leadership
I
point,
mean-
Caleb?
Yeah. So, well, I also was just going to say I thought that pass interference call where Darius Rush got the interception was egregious. And that's kind of a moment of shifting moment in the game and all that. But
Definitely.
then it kind of went
Turning point
both
moment.
ways. Like South Carolina, the only reason that they scored a touchdown on that last drive before the half was there's an offensive pass or a defensive pass interference and a holding penalty. And the holding penalty in particular, I mean, the ball was way over Stogner's head. That felt like a little bit of a makeup call there. But anyway,
That's what I was saying.
you know, then they scored a touchdown. So they traded
They
points
very,
there.
very did not lose that
As
game.
soon as the call
Absolutely.
happened, I was like, they're going to make it up somehow because, like, Shane stomped up to this man. It was very funny to see it all go out.
But if you're ranking reasons South Carolina lost, the refs are probably not even in the top 10.
Oh, no,
like
no.
not even close. So like it's almost not even worth talking about.
There was a couple memes though after of the refs calls. I did see some of those
Cool.
out there, but that's not our
Score
problem.
10 points.
typically.
Cool.
Yeah. So I guess the obvious place to go here, because we've just spent most of the last 30 minutes speaking pretty negatively and particularly about the offense and maybe the offensive play calling and all of that. And that, I guess that is probably the most frustrating thing is it does feel like there's more talent on this offense than they're showing at the moment. But do you have any positives to take away from this? Like, are there any signs of hope for the future? Like how are we feeling right now? Because probably if you look at this 3-game stretch of Kentucky, Texas A&M, Missouri, heading into it, you're like, oh, if we can get 2 or 3 of those, that's pretty great. But because you get the first 2 and lose to probably the worst team of those 3, it feels a little bit different, especially at home on homecoming. You're the first time you're ranked in the Shane Beamer era. It just felt like a missed opportunity for sure. So where's your head out right now?
Do I have to say positive things about the offense, or could it just be positive in general?
Positive in general,
Just
maybe
any
just about
good
the
things
trajectory of
that
the
make
you
program
feel
or the
better.
team.
Nick Emenwari is really good. I think that's another probably sign that the more Shane Beamer's players cycle into here and Muschamps players cycle out, things might look better. I mean, that's probably better for you to talk about, Caleb. You talked about all the recruiting stuff, but there's that. Again, D-line played well. Special teams, fine. I really don't have a single offensive positive other than that they get to play Vanderbilt this week.
Antoine Wells was a good person to go after in the transfer portal.
But he's an explosive receiver, and he can't do explosive things if he's catching the ball behind the line of scrimmage, or at least it's a lot harder to.
It's also
Yeah.
harder when you're not getting the ball.
That's
Well,
the yeah.
I think the most frustrating, and we're
We're
gonna
already
get
off
back to
topic.
We're
On the
trying to be
positive.
positive here.
I
What's
know.
going on?
I know, but I do have one more thing. Is like where are the like quick crossing patterns? Like, okay, fine, you can't take a 5-step drop in this game because every time you do, Rattler's got someone in his face. Great. Where you're just like quick, like hot passes over
Hot
the middle
routes,
because they were sending linebackers on almost every play. We talked about this going into game that Missouri likes to blitz. That means there should be openings in the middle part of the field, and they didn't attack the middle hardly at all night. Anyway, it's frustrating. Pauline, any positives
what's
for
your
you?
positive? You seem eager to give positives.
All right, I'm trying to rope us back in. We're not the glass half empty type of people. I'd say a positive is I think the resilience is honestly like, I mean, out of the just seeing it and like, being on the field, not just like looking at like a TV screen and like yelling at them, like seeing, like I mentioned earlier, like Austin literally had blood all over his freaking, like his pants, his arms were scraped up. He was getting like decked, all this type of stuff. Like, but he was still being put in every single time. Like as much as he like was getting beat up, he didn't want, same with the defense. They were trying to step up and they were trying to do as much as they could. They were trying to do the most. I saw them out there. I mean, they were frustrated. The people yelling at them didn't help, but I think that the fact that they're still putting their head down and going through it, even though they did lose, like I saw them, like I said, hugging the other team.
Right.
I have a fun picture of Spencer, like, being friendly with somebody.
I've got one positive off that. Then you inspired me. It's coach speak, and I try not to let coach speak dictate how I talk about the team. But Beamer said they had a really good practice last night. He was actually late to the teleconference. He was about 5 minutes late. He said he didn't want to cut practice short to like get on the phone because they were feeling good and guys were in a decent mood. And so I don't know if that's for real. I don't know if Shane Beamer just forgot to call us for 5 minutes. I try not to
say during.
Go ahead.
Oh, they're just saying during the press conference this past week when, to your point, oh yeah, they were a top 25 team. And a lot of them, when they were asked, like their response was, oh, it doesn't matter. Like we're not supposed to be focusing on that. And I don't know if that would have helped them or hurt them. But a lot of them were saying like, it doesn't matter. Like we are still improving every day, like as they say, but like.
Yeah, I do wonder if there's
practice. He seemed to think they had a good positive practice yesterday, at least according to what he told us. So if you want a positive,
I don't know if the 25 would have been an incentive, though. You know what I'm saying? Like
Missouri's gone. It's Vanderbilt week. You can't do anything about Missouri now, and you gotta go take the field Saturday night in Nashville and see how that goes.
Be there.
You going?
Yeah, but as a fan, so nice. I'll be there.
Yeah, and Alan will be there, and great. So
you want to fly to Nashville, Caleb? You want to do a Friday night in Nashville?
I do.
Hey.
I just can't, but I do really want to. If they go back there for the Music City Bowl or something, maybe. If it's still called that, I don't even know. But anyway, both of you brought up the resilience. I will say one thing. If we're talking about identity of this program at the moment in the Shane Beamer era, identity of this team, whatever, other than maybe the Georgia game over 21 games, I have not seen this team quit on pretty much any game, regardless.
Yeah, you're right, Pauline. They were down 21-3 at Arkansas. They fought back in that one and kind of sort of had a chance to win it in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, down 17-0 here. Like you said, brought it within 7 in the fourth quarter before, the wheels fell off, and you follow up that getting down by 7 with a 3 and out, and what do you expect or whatever. But so positive on the resiliency point for sure. But if you're a South Carolina fan, I guess a positive to take away is I don't think that this is the height of the Shane Beamer era just yet. Hopefully the height isn't one
ranked 25th for 1 week.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's Halloween, or it's Halloween weekend. Today's Halloween.
Scary. It was a
Go,
scary game.
yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Go eat some candy. Have
You know,
a
eat your
pumpkin
feels.
beer, you know, whatever. And yeah, then we'll turn our attention to Vanderbilt. We'll have plenty of coverage on GamecocksGroup.com all week. We'll still wrap up this game a little bit more. I know that Alex's stat feature is coming out later today. We'll have some film breakdown from Coach Perry McCarty throughout the
He's
next
gonna have a
couple of
great time
days.
watching that back.
Yeah. We'll have Pauline's pictures uploaded today or tomorrow as well. And then we'll start to turn our attention towards Vanderbilt, who you said is on a 25-game
SEC losing streak. Yeah.
losing streak. So,
So stay
you know,
positive.
yeah, an opportunity to turn things around. And overall, you know, get bowl eligible, which is always important goal right here at the
And
beginning
put Jaheim
of
Bell in.
Yeah, that's honestly, I don't want
That's the
to
only other takeaway.
over under 0.5 targets for Jaheim Bell on Saturday.
Dude, it definitely at this point hopefully can become a squeaky wheel situation. Yeah, I don't know. Like,
Not a broken wheel.
if you're Jaheim Bell, are you thinking about like transferring next year? I don't like
His
it's
mom didn't say it, but kind of hinted at it on Twitter.
yeah, and
You
you
can't
know,
lose a player like
again, if
his
does
stature.
that somewhat depend on if your offensive coordinator is back or not, or you know, like are there going to be some other possible departures?
All
but
right,
then
I think
can
we're
you
done here.
appease
We can get
them?
back Thursday.
All right. Anyway, GamecocksScoop.com for all the
Oh,
latest
I've got
news
basketball coming this week.
on
There's 2
South
exhibitions. I
Carolina.
got some words coming on those.
Right, Mars Hill on Friday.
Men's playing Mars Hill Wednesday. Women are playing Benedict College tonight.
Cool. So yeah, if those of you frustrated with South Carolina football, let's turn
Yeah,
our
it's basketball
attention
season,
to
almost.
basketball. You're gonna get to see a future NBA star throughout the season. I don't know how many wins that's going to
And
translate
the
to,
best
but
coach.
it should be
And the
fun.
best
Yeah,
coach.
women's basketball. Yeah, you're fine, y'all.
Heck
We
yeah.
got basketball right around the corner.
All right. Well, until Thursday when we preview Vanderbilt, this has been the GamecocksScoop.com podcast with Caleb, Allen, and Pauline. See you guys later.
Bye.